Hello and welcome to All the Things. I am Monique Duson.
And I am Krista Bontrager, also known as Theology Mom.
This is the show where we talk about all things related to God, the Bible, and real life. What's up?
We're live!
We are. Last week we were dark. Or no, last week we were pre-recorded?
We were pre-recorded because you were in Pittsburgh
at the Unshaken conference. And I was actually at the Unshaken conference with our guests.
I know.
Yes.
And tonight our moderator is Elaine Boss.
I was just thinking about something. So I went to dinner with our guest, Dr. Chris, and we had this lobster cheese dip. The way that thing blessed me, I said, Father, yes. Now we can keep on with business. But I did have to have an intermission and an homage just to the lobster cheese sauce.
So what is happening in your world? What'd you do today?
Oh my gosh. So usually I spend Saturdays like either reading or trying to, like, I'm not home. Every day I feel like I have to be around people. And today I didn't. And I was so thankful. Not that I'm not.
Is that why you're in such a good mood?
It probably is.
Because you weren't around people
and
today?
I feel like I'm an extrovert, but the older that I get, I'm just like, do we understand how sacred this alone time is? I cleaned my whole house. Like, I mean, baseboards and like things that just, I am the one who needs clean baseboards. I don't understand, but it's just me. And so I did that. I cleaned all day and then I meal prepped. So I made all my breakfast and most of my lunch for the week. And I am currently slow roasting some ribs so we can go have dinner when we're done with the show.
Yay.
Yeah.
She's making me a special dinner.
Yeah. So I feel like it was, that's kind of why I'm in a good mood, is because I did a lot. I did stuff that I like to do. I really love to clean. It's a problem.
Guess what I did today?
Oh, what? Sorry, I thought you were talking to them. You talking to me? I didn't know if you was going to say. What did you do?
I read the Communist Manifesto.
One of my favorites. How'd you enjoy it?
It was big fun.
It was. Yeah.
I thought it's 80 pages. I can do that.
So why did you read it?
Well, that was after I read a textbook on standpoint phenomenology.
Mm-hmm.
That was also big fun. And then I moved on to a Hungarian philosopher named Lukács.
I'm sure that's not how his mama spells his
I'm
name
sure
or says it. Father.
I'm working on my dissertation.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you know what else happened today? Oh, it happened yesterday, but I didn't show you until today.
Oh, no. What?
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show everybody.
You're going to show everybody? Woo! Looky there.
So this is a preview of our book so that we can see what it will look like. And I am so excited.
So say what it is for the podcast.
This is our book, Walking in Unity. And if you have not pre-ordered, go and pre-order. You can pre-order on Amazon. It is coming or releasing on October 15th. And if you see me, Krista, Theology Mom, or anyone at CFBU posting our book, Walking in Unity, please share it. Like, just share it on your pages far and wide because we are being shadow banned. Like, Krista normally is the one who talks about shadow banning. I'm like, the Lord will do what he do. And I'm still trying to hold to that position, the Lord will do what he do. But, y'all, the shadow banning is so real. I posted I posted something last week. Like 300 people like had interaction with it, like showing like they liked it or they put a heart or something like that. I put a picture of Walking in Unity up and like 7 people. It was like, I was like, oh, okay. And 300 is still like only 10% of what's on my personal page.
Yeah, don't you have like 8,000 followers or something?
No, I have like 3,000. And so it's like, that's 10%. But I don't want to go down the long road of all things social media and timelines and all that. But I'm just making a request. So if you see it, please share it. We would love it. And it would be super helpful for us.
Okay, we're doing the thing that some people hate. And that's we're having the opening banter. But they can just
fast forward.
There's a little fast forward button.
It is okay, honey. Push your finger on the fast forward because I have something else that I wanted to talk to you about, but we won't.
Oh, we could talk about something.
Okay, do you ever get the question of what does your family think? I thought about this when I was cleaning. What does your family think about the work that you do?
What does my family think? Well, my children were little. They thought I just made,
No, honey, not
made
now.
copies
Now,
at the
what you
Xerox
do
machine.
now, what you do today. What does your family think about the work that you do with the Center for Biblical?
Um,
Do you know,
I don't really know.
Father?
I think they probably, I mean, they've always thought I'm probably a little peculiar because I've been working in apologetics for 30 years. I'm sure my in-laws aren't ever going to tell me what they actually think.
I don't know. I was wondering, not wondering, but I reflected back on that question because I was asked that recently, like, what does your family think about the work that you do?
I don't know. My sister-in-law sometimes watches the show. Kathy, what do you think? Go ahead.
I'm just wondering. I didn't really know how to answer. I think everyone tells me like that they're proud of me, but it made me think back to the very first time when my family realized I did something public. I was in a grocery store in Arizona.
Yeah, you were buying some chips.
And other things. And I didn't know anybody would know me. And so a girl walked up to me and was like, "Are you Monique?" And my sister-in-law and her mom were there, and it was just the three of us. And I was like, "Yes." And now my sister-in-law, she's feisty. Like, she's like, why are you talking to us? And so the girl kept going, was like, "Oh, I really like your content, da da da." Fast forward, she leaves. My sister-in-law is like, "You're famous?" And I said, "No, not at all, not even a little bit." And she was like, "But people know you." And I was like, "Well, that's just because of the podcast." And she was like, "Well, that makes you famous."
Well, I was at a monastery last December.
Mhm.
My brother-in-law took Emily and I to a monastery, and we were there with my nephew. And we're looking around, and they have like a little museum there, and they have some art and everything. And so my brother-in-law thought Emily and I would enjoy this. So we're just walking around. All of a sudden, this woman's like jogging by, and she circles back and she says, "Hey, I recognize your voice. You're theology mom." My brother-in-law and my nephew were like, "What is happening right now?" We're in rural Oregon at a monastery.
When we walked in the house, my sister was like, "Did y'all know Kiki famous?" And I was like, anyway, I don't know. I thought about that while I was cleaning. That has nothing to do with today's show. Let's get started on today's show because I know Dr. Chris is sitting there like, what did I sign up for?
What are we doing here?
Because like I need to go to bed.
Okay, so it's been almost 2 years since Roe was overturned, and
I was like, who?
Like Roe versus Wade? Okay.
Sometimes you just gotta let me know a little bit more. Just don't leave me out there hanging by myself.
So I thought it would be good if we did a couple of update shows. We're going to be talking tonight with our friend Dr. Chris Cirucci, hitting it, who's an OB-GYN. She's been on the show before, and we're going to talk about chemical abortions because those are on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to play any scary TikTok videos of women taking chemical abortion pills because that's just sort of morbid, but it is a thing to film yourself while you're taking the chemical abortion. And then I thought,
I have so many questions already. Keep going.
And then talk about birth control and the science behind birth control, and then kind of connecting it to the Christian worldview, because I think it's a thing that a lot of people don't think about. Other birth control may have worldview implications.
Well, I wonder if it's just that people don't understand how different birth controls work. And so if you don't, then, any birth control is an option or viable simply because it is doing the thing that you want it to do, which is not allow you to get pregnant.
Yeah.
So I think the lack of connection between birth control and my worldview may not be intentional or just apathy. It may just be I never realized that.
You don't hear too many sermons about that. So we have a board certified OB-GYN on the show to break it all down for us. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Chris.
Thanks for
Hello.
having me again. It's great to see you guys.
Good to see you as well. And I know you're board certified and all of that, and that's fancy. But I do think the fact that you enjoy good food is just so much fancier.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that lobster queso. That was great.
So good. It was so good.
Fun.
So,
Fun to-
for those who are not familiar with you, who haven't seen the previous show you were on, can you just give us a brief update of who you are, what you're doing, why you do it?
Sure. So yes, I'm a board certified OB-GYN and I live in Pittsburgh and practice OB-GYN here in private practice for 20 years. And a few years ago, I stopped working clinically because of some health issues. Um, And after that, that gave me time and opportunity to get involved in more research. And I've been doing research on chemical abortion for the most part. So I am vice chair of the board of the American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs. Actually, in a few weeks, I'll be the chair. And I am a scholar with the Charlotte Lozier Institute. Are a pro-life research organization. And I'm a fellow with another organization called Reasons to Believe. So those things keep me pretty busy, even though I'm not seeing patients.
That's how Dr. Chris and I met.
Yeah,
Was she came into the program that I was running there at Reasons to Believe, and I was just so impressed with her. And she contributed to a book that I'm the general editor
Oh,
on,
well, that's awesome.
and so people will be able to read more about her story and her journey to faith. So glad to have you here over at the Center for Biblical Unity as a resource too. Sometimes we're emailing you and asking you questions, and we really appreciate that. Um, how do you see your work as a medical doctor intersecting with your faith? Some people may not have ever thought about that before. I think that's an interesting question to think about, of how our profession sometimes connects to our faith. And I'd be curious to hear some of your reflections about that.
sure. Great question. So first of all, I just want to give a couple disclaimers. So although I work with these organizations, today I'm speaking myself, so I'm not behalf of anybody. So these opinions and things I will say today are my own. And nothing tonight is medical advice. I hope everyone gets a lot of good information and things to think about, but obviously you want to get the medical advice from your doctor. But yes, back to your question. Being a Christian impacts greatly my work as a physician. It impacts everything I do. So I am, first of all, a Christian first and foremost. I'm not a doctor who happens to be a Christian. I'm a Christian. So one of the ways I think it impacts is because as Christians, we see every person. Every person is made in the image of God, and that's how I see every patient. So that's really important. But also in OB-GYN, there are so many ethical issues, and some of which we'll talk about tonight. But because I believe that life begins at conception, I don't do abortions and I don't prescribe certain types of birth control. So these are big things I have had to think about as I entered this field and done a lot of research into them.
That's good, and I appreciate that. And in thinking about themes that we talked about last time related to abortion, one of the things that you said, it's very seldom that a guest says something that like really sticks with me, but there was something you said on that show that really has stuck with me. That is that if you were in a situation, when you're in a situation with a mother and a baby, and the baby hasn't been born yet, that you see that as you have two patients, and
Yeah,
that you want to work for what's in the best interest of both of those patients.
absolutely.
And that is, I think, an extension of your worldview that comes right into decisions that you recommend to your patients.
Absolutely.
Um, and I think that when we think about our worldview as Christians, I took a class in medical ethics 30 years ago when I was in seminary, and that was really the first time it had ever been raised in my conscious awareness about birth control, and that had some connection to the Christian worldview. And we had to learn about all these different methods and what they did. Now, that was 30 years ago, so I'm sure medical technology has changed since then. But when you think about birth control, like, and the intersection of the Christian worldview, maybe just give us a couple of broad
Mm.
principles to start with, and then we're going to get into the different methods. But just from a broad principle worldview standpoint, like, what are some things that you that come up for you as a Christian who's also an OB?
Sure. So I think the first question, and these are questions that I, as an OB, have to address, but I think any patient who is considering using birth control and has to evaluate for themselves as well. But I think the first question is it okay as a Christian to use artificial means to prevent pregnancy, to prevent conception? Now, my Catholic friends would say that that is wrong. I'm not Catholic and I've not taken that view, but I respect their view. And I think there's some good reasons behind that. So that would be the first question. Is it okay to use any kind of contraception? And, as with many of the things, some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, Christians will have different views. So that would be the first thing. I think the second question is, and I think in this podcast, we'll assume that, kind of put that question aside and talk about birth control, assuming it's okay in general. But then the second question is, how does this birth control work? Does it destroy a human being? And so different types of birth control have different ways they work, different what we call mechanisms of action, and we have to look at those. And I personally find some of them unacceptable from a Christian worldview.
Wow, that's even just that little bit of what you've said is so helpful, is that they have, there are different mechanisms and, you know, needing to consider what are the mechanisms that are at work. Let's just dig in. What are some of the, when it comes to birth control, some of the options that are available, and can you help us distinguish how the options work differently?
Absolutely. And that's a big question. I'm going to dial back a little bit. Let's talk about conception and how
Okay.
that happens. So, and then we'll talk about how birth control might work. So the sperm actually travels through the cervix, travels through the uterus into the fallopian tube. And that is where the egg and sperm meet, in the fallopian tube. That's where fertilization occurs. And at that moment, we have what's called a zygote, but that is a one-celled unique human being with his or her own DNA, completely unique human being. And then that organism becomes 2 cells and 4 cells and on, and travels down the tube. And then at about 7 days after conception, it implants into the uterine wall. So you have to look at where in that process the contraception works. So I'll start with the easiest one. So barrier methods. So that would be condoms, diaphragm, cervical cap, sponge. Those prevent the sperm from getting through. So they don't interrupt a human life, because a human life isn't forming, the sperm's not getting through. So if you consider contraception in general to be okay, and you're pro-life, that would certainly be an acceptable method.
Let me say something really quick here for our Catholic friends, and just so
Yes.
that people understand kind of the Catholic position. Although we're all Protestants here, I want to be respectful of our Catholic friends, and because they are also with us in the pro-life conversation. And so, they would consider even a barrier method oftentimes as being a hindrance to conception. And
Yes.
so for them, in their tradition, would not be on board with the barrier method. Now, as Protestants, there's an allowance for the barrier method because the sperm is not seen as a totally living being with, and so it's not until it's joined with the egg and then there's the its
Right.
own DNA that's created in the zygote. So this is kind of an area of conversation between Catholics and Protestants. Unless you're a Protestant who's part of the quiverful stream, which is its own thing altogether, but they have kind of a similar position oftentimes to our Catholic friends. Okay, go ahead.
Well, that's a great disclaimer. And I work with a lot of Catholics in the pro-life movement and really respect them tremendously. And I haven't really changed my position, but the more I hear about their position, more right I'm thinking they are. So it's a personal decision. And in the pro-life movement, people who are very pro-life take even different views on this and different views on certain types of contraception. So again, I'm giving you my my input,
Yeah,
but there are a lot of other ways to look at, a lot of valid ways to look at this as
yeah,
a and absolutely, and I highly respect the Catholic view for sure.
yeah,
So, but yes, the sperm is not, it's a cell, it's not a unique organism, neither
right.
is the egg. Once they meet, then that's a unique person. And that's, so the other maybe next easy thing to talk about would be sterilization. Now, again, the Catholics don't believe in that because they don't think it's appropriate to interfere. But if we're talking about, well, how does this work? If a woman gets her tubes tied, we call it, the tube is, cut and tied off, so to speak. And so the egg and the sperm can't meet because they meet in the egg or they meet in the tube. So that does not destroy a human being.
So a
A vas-
vasectomy would also be a form of sterilization.
So vasectomy in a male prevents the sperm from being in the ejaculate. So there's no sperm there entering. So that does not. So those methods I would consider from a pro-life position to be acceptable. I don't see them as in any way interfering with a human life. So now we get to the harder ones. So those are pretty straightforward.
Okay.
So the next most, one of the most common methods of birth control is the birth control pill. So, and there are two different kinds of pills. The main type of pill, called the combination pill, has estrogen and progesterone. And the other type of pill, which is less common, is called the progesterone only pill. It only has progesterone. And it's sometimes called the mini pill. So most people who take the pill will take the first. So it's estrogen and progesterone. And that's a hormonal contraception, which primarily works by preventing ovulation. So it prevents the woman from her ovary from releasing an egg or an ovum. And so there is no interruption of a human life because the sperm and the egg don't meet. Now with that said, that's the primary method. No methods are 100%. So the pill also works by thickening the cervical mucus. So by thickening the cervical mucus, the sperm doesn't get through. The pill could perceivably work by thinning the lining of the uterus, the endometrium. And if it would work in that way, then remember, the sperm and the egg meet in the tube, and at that fusion, we have a new human being, travels down the tube into the uterus. And if we're preventing implantation, I believe that's destroying human life. The human life begins at conception. However, there's not clear evidence that the pill works in that way. So I, throughout my career, have prescribed the combination oral contraceptive pill. There are pro-life people that take a different position on that. But if you look at the other type of birth control pill, the progesterone only pill, that does not work primarily by preventing ovulation. And so I have not ever prescribed that method because I believe it is an abortifacient. It can, again, a method that is going to change the endometrium so that a very young 7-day-old human being can't implant and therefore dies, in my view, that is unacceptable.
I have so many questions. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. So there's two kinds of pills. One was, I think you said the mini.
Well, the mini pill or progesterone only pill. So the main hormones are estrogen and progesterone. One pill has both of those. And
That's the combo.
That's the combo pill. If someone's on the pill, 95% chance or so they're on that.
Okay. And
So
that one is the one that you have prescribed, is the combo pill. You feel
Yes, I feel comfortable prescribing that.
okay. So there is like an unclear chance in your mind that it may or may not provide like an environment. It might create an environment that is hostile to the zygote implanting in the uterus. You're uncertain as to whether it really does that, so you feel comfortable with prescribing that one, whereas the mini pill, you're like, no, I'm not prescribing that one because it does create a hostile environment. Do I have that right?
Sort of.
Okay.
The combination pill primarily works by preventing ovulation, and its secondary method, again, it probably in very rare cases ovulation would occur, but then the secondary method would be thickening the mucus. So what you have to realize in these studies, it can be hard to figure out physiologically all the details.
Okay.
I feel, and so yeah, some people may say, well, I'm not going to prescribe that, or again, those of us with a pro-life position in this field are probably, there are many people that don't take this position, and so don't even think about these details. But yes, the regular pill works primarily by preventing ovulation. The progesterone only pill, in my view, is much more problematic
because it creates a hostile environment right from the start.
It only prevents ovulation about 40 to 50% of the time.
Okay. What is the pill that is most generally prescribed?
The combination pill.
The combination pill, which is the one that you feel comfortable with
Correct.
prescribing. Okay, just making sure that I'm following.
So I think that could be an issue. I think it's good. This is all education. Like, we want people to understand the science and thinking it through. So some people might say, well, I want to be extra careful not to take any pill because I don't want there to be a setup that could potentially create a hostile environment for the embryo as it's forming. And so they may opt, no, I don't want to take the pill at all, as a matter of conscience. That could also be a position.
Absolutely, that could be a position. And I want to clarify my position because it kind of sounds like I'm just compromising, but I've spent a lot of time researching this and feel that it's not clear. If it happens, it's extremely rare. It's not clear it happens. So, you have to kind of make a decision on what is the best thing to do. But yes, you're correct.
Okay.
What are some other methods? So we have barrier method, we have the pill, sterilization.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Depo-Provera. Oh, let me back up on the pill, because another method is the ring, like the Nuva ring, which is a vaginal ring, and there's patches, like it used to be called Ortho Evra patch. These are, I'm going to put in the same category as the combination pill. They have estrogen and progesterone. They work the same way. They're just a different means of taking them. Instead of taking a pill, it's either a patch or a.
So they're hormone based. Could we say that?
Yes, they are. They have estrogen and progesterone. So those I would consider also acceptable in my viewpoint.
Now, what we're not covering tonight is like pros and cons of even taking the pill for other applications and some of those issues. Like, we're just strictly talking about the science of how the pill works. So
Sure.
this isn't a medical recommendation. We're just talking about this is the mechanics of how this works.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to get to understanding.
And there are other reasons to take the pill besides contraception. So someone may not even be having sex and need to be on the pill for another reason, for controlling their periods, or in some cases it's used for acne, or there's other reasons. So that's just to be kept in mind. But we're talking specifically, obviously its main use is contraception.
Okay.
So the next method I would discuss then is Depo-Provera. So Depo-Provera is an injection of progesterone that is given every 3 months. I always say people either love it or hate it. Kind of gives some irregular bleeding, but then after a while, a lot of women have no bleeding at all. Depo-Provera prevents ovulation very well. It's a good method. I prescribe Depo-Provera. I'm comfortable with that method.
Because it prevents ovulation, and by preventing ovulation, you're vastly reducing the risk of fertilization.
Well, if ovulation doesn't occur, there can't be fertilization.
There can't be fertilization. So assuming it works 100%.
Right.
And I know that some people are going to come on here and they're going to have issues with hormone-based treatments in general and the dangers of all of that. And that's, again, I want to emphasize that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's not the show.
That's not the show.
Yeah.
Right. There are risks to these methods.
Yeah.
I tell patients the risks. There are some people that even if they're willing to use it, it's not right for them because of the risks and their certain medical history. So yes, we're just looking at it. Thank you for clarifying.
We're simply looking at how they work and the science and that sort of a thing. Okay.
Right.
So I want to
you want to talk about the IUD?
I do. Let's do that before we do anything else.
Okay.
Comment.
All right. I want to do some comments.
Yeah.
But all right, go ahead. Yeah, let's do the IUD.
So the IUD would be the next major method, and it's very common, commonly used. It's gained in popularity. It's an intrauterine device, and there's two types. One is progesterone releasing, and one is a copper IUD. Now, the copper IUD is used infrequently, but the progesterone releasing IUD does not consistently prevent ovulation. I don't insert IUDs for that reason.
That's pretty consistent with what I was taught 30 years ago, is that IUDs were seen as not being consistent with the pro-life position. I don't know if I could tell you why that is. I just always kind of knew, like, yeah, that's a no. But what you're saying is that it doesn't adequately prevent ovulation.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, all of these methods usually work in several ways, like, prevent ovulation some of the time, do this some of the time, etc. So, but yes, I think that with the IUD, it does not consistently prevent ovulation.
Okay. All right, this has been good. All right, we're going to take a quick 1-minute timeout here and hear from our friends at Impact 360, and then we're going to come back and continue this conversation about birth control, get to some of your comments, and then get into chemical abortion and the rise of that and how that works, and is it really as safe as taking Tylenol? All right, we'll get to it. We'll be right back.
I'd always heard in church, like, go and make disciples, and they'd always say that verse, and I'm like, I don't really know what that looks like at all. And then when I got here, they taught me like everything I was curious to know about, like progressive Christianity and how to talk to an atheist and how to go about witnessing to someone without it being overly preachy or insincere, and that helped me so much.
It's just been such an awesome week. going through these questions and really diving into them, and not just with me, but other Christians. It's not like an individual thing, it's a together thing. We're really strengthening our relationship with the Lord personally, but also together.
We have been given the greatest gift. We have been given life, and Propel has really made me realize once again how important it is to share that gift with the millions of people out there who don't have that gift that's just ripe for the taking.
Registrations for the 2025 Propel season are coming up soon. 2024, I believe, is already full.
Are they? Oh, I haven't gotten that email.
I believe they are. I had a conversation with someone from Impact when I was at Unshaken. And I know
you
they're
have the insider info.
Please forgive me if I speak under correction, but I will be speaking there on July. I want to say July 8th. No, maybe 11th, somewhere
13th?
around there.
Somewhere.
7th. Yes, but I tend to speak every summer, so sign your kids up, and not because I'm speaking there, but because it's a really good way to help your kids grow in the understanding of a biblical worldview.
Yep.
Okay, let's go to some comments.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start with Melissa's comment because I think that it's a thoughtful comment, and it brings me back to even a Bible story, but we won't go with that Bible story. She says, pull-out method has worked for me over 20 years. Thoughts on ethics of this? I know some people don't think that it's okay biblically. And so that took me back to that Old Testament Bible story. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were going to talk about this. I don't think I've studied that enough to know the ethics of.
Well, that's why we got Dr. Chris.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to put her on the spot on that. That's kind of controversial.
Dr. Chris. Let me ask.
Okay, well, let's talk about it from a purely pro-life standpoint.
Okay.
There's two ways you want to examine that issue. So if that's worked, there's no sperm heading up there. So there's no destroying of a person. So from that standpoint, I don't have an ethical problem with it. Now there is that Bible story. And so I'm going to defer to Krista, our theologian, on that. But I do that does bring up something else, which is, and I've been remiss in not discussing this earlier, and this isn't withdrawal method, but fertility awareness-based methods, which a lot of Catholics use. And this is different ways of knowing your cycle, knowing when you ovulate, and avoiding intercourse at that time. And that would be a very good option for Christians. And again, our Catholic friends are in general comfortable with that as well. So I know I'm not answering the question, but
well, I think that does answer the question. I think because the question is, what do you think ethically? People may not agree with it biblically, but ethically, there's no sperm being inserted to be able to meet the egg. And so technically there's no life being created. I think that would be the ethical response. Like, now I guess if you want to say, well, biblically we got that one story in the Bible and they talk that, I have seen people use that Bible story for many things, and we are not going to bring all those things up.
In-depth study on that, so I don't want to comment out of turn.
Melissa says, sorry for stirring up the controversy, but thanks for addressing. Girl, we will address, honey, it's all the things. It is okay.
It's even birth control.
It is, and it's not, I mean, look, I would say aside from me, everybody on here probably doing a little something, because I'm not married. I mean, you know what I mean? So, and I mean, yes, this is something I can think about, but I assume Melissa is married. She asking for personal reasons.
That's right.
I got you, Melissa.
But I think Dr. Chris is raising a good point here is the Susanna made a comment earlier on the stream that some Catholics believe God should be the one to decide how many children you should have. And that's kind of the Catholic position, is sort of trusting the Lord. It's similar to the quiverful position, but doing what sometimes is called natural family planning, or knowing your cycles, knowing your body, is in the Catholic tradition and acceptable.
All the women on the stream about to go download the app.
Yeah, there's an app for that, probably.
There is an app for that.
And our friend Natalie Roman says, I was one of those that felt that I should not take oral contraceptives.
Mhm.
I did end up having 9 children, but I am not quiverful. So, yes. But yeah, some people have that conviction, and that is definitely part of the conversation. And let's see.
And I love that. And here we have our 2 people who have commented so far. Everybody needs to evaluate them for themselves and with their husband and or wife, and different methods for different people, for different reasons. So,
But having some of those boundaries in place of what we're talking about tonight, of understanding the science and making an informed decision, and how are these things working? Are there any other birth control methods that you want to bring up, or you want to? I didn't know if there was anything else we wanted to cover on that topic before we transition into the chemical abortions.
well, there are some other methods like the
Nor Norplant or something.
Nexplanon, which is a rod. There is
Wait, did you say a rod?
right, it goes in the arm here.
Oh, okay.
It's in it. You inject it. It's
But
a
into
little
your arm.
into a yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's
I
not a
had.
rod.
Yeah.
It's an implant.
Okay.
It's not. And I don't prescribe that either. That would be, I would put in the same category as the IUD and how it works. And then there's what people call, the quote unquote emergency contraception, like the morning after pill. And there's 2 different types of those. So I don't know if you want to go down that road.
Yeah, tell us
Yeah.
about the morning after pill. That's a technology that's kind of developed since I took a class in medical ethics, and I would like to know, how that works.
So there's 2 types. One is actually you can get over the counter, and it is just progesterone. And the other one is called Ella, and it's ulipristal, which is very similar to mifepristone, which is one of the pills used in abortion. So both of these methods, so someone would say had unprotected sex and doesn't want to be pregnant, so they take them after the event. And really how these work depend on where relative to ovulation and timing and a lot of things. So they can work in good ways, they can work in bad ways. So I don't prescribe those either.
Okay.
I find them problematic. Now, I do want to say, you sent me an article, Krista, about the OB-GYNs survey.
Yeah, there was an article published at the Cedarville, which is a Christian college, and it was in their journal, and I thought it was it that one, or was it the
one? So this one,
the physician beliefs. Okay.
Yeah.
That one is from ajog.org.
Yes.
And
so that's
it says, I'm just going to read the headline for the podcast: Physician beliefs about contraceptive methods as abortifacients, and talking about how there are a significant number of physicians that don't really even know how some of these methods work.
Yeah, well, that was a great article to discuss. I want to talk about that. So what they did is they interviewed physicians at the University of Wisconsin and asked them if they thought different methods were abortifacients. Now, here's what's significant. First of all, they didn't interview just OB-GYNs. So I'm not sure the radiologist reading x-rays necessarily needs to know how they work. He probably learned it in medical school. So they weren't just interviewing, OB-GYNs and family practice. So that's one thing. And they, of course, then there was a minority, but significant minority of OB-GYNs who felt that particularly the IUD and emergency contraception were abortifacients. And in this article, they talk about how this is a misconception. Now, you have to look at definitions, because you have to look at how they define abortifacient. They don't call it an abortifacient unless it destroys an embryo that is already implanted in the uterus. So they don't even count those first 7 days of early human life.
So they redefine what a human person is from the beginning, and
Yeah.
basically redefine it seems like they redefine at least the early process of like the making of the human person, right?
They redefine pregnancy, and this is happening in much of the OB-GYN literature where, well, that's not an abortifacient because it doesn't, they don't call it a pregnancy or abortifacient unless it, it's implanted.
So you're not pregnant for those first 7 days.
I don't know how they would say that. There's so much twisting of words. So you really have to, I think this article is a very good example. So if you're asking your physician, is this cause abortion? Well, if they take the view of this article, they're going to say no. Well, of course, it depends on the type or whatever, but I think you really have to ask your physician, how does this work?
And that's when I've been in that position and having that conversation with my OB in the past on a few occasions. They will always reassure me, no matter what the method is, that it's not an abortifacient. And I'm usually very transparent with them, like, hey, I'm pro-life and, I'm a religious person and this is important to me. And can you tell me the science behind XYZ method? And they'll be like, oh, you don't have to worry about it. They're almost like embarrassed to even have the conversation. And I'm asking a question about the science and, they're just trying to shoo me away and telling me, well, you're just misinformed. That's not how that works, blah, blah, blah. And so I appreciated this article, and your analysis of it gives me a little bit more understanding of how some people could find themselves in that situation, trying to talk to their doctor, trying to have the conversation, but maybe the ethical principles aren't aligning because the medical definitions are not aligning either.
Right. Or yes, and that's, I'm sorry you have the experience, and I would imagine it's not uncommon, unfortunately.
Dr. Chris, there's a comment on Facebook, and I was kind of thinking the same thing of, when did the wording change from like conception to implantation?
It's interesting. I don't know when it changed. I read medical literature and it's like, I don't know, it was years ago. It's like, well, and I saw that narrative and I'm like, what? So it's like a lot of things today. There's redefinition. And, the American College of OB-GYN, ACOG, which should be representative of all OB-GYNs, is unfortunately very pro-abortion, and there's a narrative there. So they, I think we have to just look at everything carefully.
Yeah, definitely. Now, we've done our dive on contraception, on, what are all the different ways. So let's change gears a little bit and let's look at chemical abortion. Can you describe or define like what is a chemical abortion and how does it work? Post the whole Roe v. Wade, situation almost 2 years ago, right?
Next month.
Yeah, almost 2 years ago. We've seen an increase in chemical abortions. What's going on here, basically? Like, what are people doing? Is this something that is, as safe as taking Tylenol? I heard Krista say that, or as safe even as the combo pill that you would prescribe?
Great questions. Well, interestingly, the chemical abortion pills were approved in 2000. And since that time, they have gradually increased in usage. In fact, I think the latest estimate was 63% of the abortions in the United States are chemical abortions. So let me explain what that is. A chemical abortion is accomplished with 2 medicines. The first one is mifepristone, or RU-486. It's an oral pill. And then 1 to 2 days later, the woman takes a second pill called misoprostol or Cytotec. That first pill is an anti-progesterone. Babies, pregnancy babies, they need progesterone to maintain life. And so that first pill works by killing the baby, or and the second pill basically puts the woman in labor and causes contractions, so she delivers the baby. Now, these are approved in the United States up to 10 weeks. So, what we're talking about here now, approved doesn't mean that's the only time that they're used, but we're basically here talking about, when I speak about abortion, I'll be talking about first trimester abortion. Now, that is the narrative, safer than Tylenol. That is a lie. It is not true. In fact, chemical abortion is less safe than surgical abortion. In the first trimester, a woman gets a surgical abortion. It's basically called a D&C. She goes into the operating room. It's a 15-minute procedure. It's, horrendous. It's just killing a baby. And she might think that taking pills is safer than surgery. We like to avoid surgery if we can, but the risks of chemical abortion are way higher than the risks of surgical abortion. So both of these kill the baby, but the harms to the mother are much higher with chemical abortion. One of the main risks is hemorrhage, bleeding. Another risk is that she will still have tissue inside, still have a piece of placenta or something, and end up needing a surgical abortion anyway. There's risk of infection. And now what's happened is they have pushed this so that they have removed the restrictions, and women are taking these without seeing a doctor, without having an ultrasound, and they're basically doing their own abortion. I heard a woman speak today just talking about, how she took the chemical abortion pills and was sitting in a pool of blood in her bathroom wondering if she was going to die, and then delivered her baby and saw her fully formed baby, and then like, well, what do I do with this baby? And then the woman flushes her baby down the toilet. This is horrendous. Women are told the bleeding is like a heavy period, and maybe for some women it is heavy bleeding and they do okay. I'm sure some women manage fine, but a lot of women describe this as worse than labor pains, really heavy bleeding. Even the drug insert on these say that I believe it's 3 to 5% go to the ER. So this is being promoted as safe. It is not safe. No matter what your opinion on abortion is, anyone who is pro-abortion, if they are a good doctor, they should be telling women to have a surgical abortion. It's safer. Multiple studies have shown this.
I'm hearing so many stories on social media, like you said, about women taking the pill or a chemical abortion and then having the baby anyways, and then they're trying to figure out how to dispose of it. It makes me have questions about, to put it very crass, like medical waste in our water supply.
Absolutely, that's an issue.
I'm just heartbroken for the woman. I'm heartbroken for the baby. And there is, to my knowledge, things like heartbeat bills don't cover chemical abortion. It's only covering surgical abortion.
I don't believe that's true.
Okay.
I think, I mean, I have to see the wording of a law and all that. But what's happening is, yes, in a state where, say, Texas, where I believe abortion is outlawed after, 6 weeks or after the heartbeat. Well, these women are getting these pills online, and you can order them online. I could order them right now. You can get them like Amazon. And then you have no medical supervision, and she doesn't necessarily know how far along she is. She could have an ectopic pregnancy in the tube. That's a pregnancy in the tube. And these medicines aren't going to treat that. And that can be life-threatening. Women have died of undiagnosed ectopic pregnancy after chemical abortion.
Yeah, I'm very concerned and about the rise of chemical abortions and the normalization of it.
Yes.
People making TikTok videos, showing themselves doing it, glorifying it. There's even kind of a small subculture of women who build like a pagan altar before they take the chemical abortion pill. This is deeply disturbing to me. It's really, and my position is life begins at conception. I want all forms of abortion to be illegal. That's my position. I'm not, I think that we have to be circumspect about, the heartbeat bills are good. It's a step in the right direction, but we still have a long ways to go. And with the rise and the accessibility of chemical abortions, what we may be preserving some life with the heartbeat bills, we have to be circumspect about the rise in chemical abortions at the same time. And, what's happening with that, but not a lot of public conversation about chemical abortion, about outlawing them. I'm not hearing a lot of buzz about that from our politicians.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I'd like to just point out, 1 in 4 women in this country have an abortion, and I'm sure there are women listening to this podcast have an abortion. And my experience as a physician who has seen many thousands of women, sure, there's women that may feel they made the right decision, but many women regret that and live with some pain their whole lives. And I want to encourage those women listening that God is a God of forgiveness, and there is restoration and hope, and to talk to somebody, because it doesn't just, abortion doesn't just kill the baby. It does that, but it harms women too.
It's a good word. I've been hoping we can put a show together about abortion recovery sometime soon, because that's another important aspect of this conversation is forgiveness, restoration, really like bringing the gospel to that person, and
to the men who are connected with it
the devastation to men. There was I don't know if people follow Kristen Hawkins from Students for Life. She had a powerful video recently on Instagram where she will stand up in front of every crazy college student and have them scream at her and call her all kind of crazy names. And she will stand up there. She's, is a pro-life advocate, and she goes around and does these talks on college campuses. She has models with all the tools, and she physically shows them like how an abortion is done. And she has the little baby and everything. She's a brave woman. But recently she had an outreach where a man came who had lost his baby to abortion. And he stood up at the mic and talked about his daughter and losing her to abortion. It was really powerful in the story that he told. And that's another component of the conversation that often we don't hear that perspective. So
I wonder how people can, or what you would recommend for women who are wanting to find doctors who are Christian, who can help them think through these things biblically or ethically.
Pro-life OBs.
Yeah, pro-life OBs. But then I go back to, your comment about the Christian medical, group, and how many of them were already thinking and wondering or agreeing with a lot of abortion. Remember when she
Well,
said that?
those weren't
No,
Christians.
she said there's a Christian organization.
Oh,
Maybe Dr. Chris, I missed it. Where did she go?
Sorry, something happened to my camera. I'm back.
Hi. Okay.
No,
So,
I don't think I said, if that's what I said, that's not what I meant.
okay.
No, I don't think she said
I
that.
thought she was saying it was a Christian organization.
no, she was just
Okay.
saying the OBs
Okay.
organization
Thank
in
you.
general.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how can people find pro-life doctors or Christian doctors? Like, what are some questions people could ask to be able to vet their OB to know, like, okay, sure, this is a person that I would, fit with?
Sure. Well, I would point people to the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So that's www.aaplog.org. So on that website, first of all, there's a tremendous amount of information, resources, all our yes, there you go. If you go under resources, we have a lot of documents, but you see there up at the top, it says find a physician. So you can find a physician, an obstetrician gynecologist who is pro-life. And if you don't find one there in your area, then I would ask you to call, because there are some people that are pro-life and don't list their names on the directory. But these are people that take a pro-life view and would certainly respect your position and understand concerns. So I would point you to that. I also want to say, can I say one other quick thing about chemical abortion?
Yeah, definitely.
So I would be remiss not to bring up abortion pill rescue or abortion pill reversal.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Controversial, but it's not controversial. So remember, this is 2 pills, about 1 to 2 days apart. And there are times when the woman takes the first pill and then she wishes she hadn't and she regrets it. And there is some hope to save that baby, save that pregnancy. It's giving high dose progesterone, counteracting the anti-progesterone of that first pill. Progesterone is completely safe. It's been used for many years in pregnancy. So I would, that website is abortionpillreversal.com. If you go there, you can get connected to a physician who could evaluate you and whether, be willing to prescribe that if it's appropriate. So I just want to make people aware it doesn't work all the time. It works about 2/3 of the time, is what the studies have shown, but thousands of babies have been saved by this means. So I wanted to make people aware of that.
Very good. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Mhm.
Just one more question. There was some little bit of confusion in the comments, and so I think I want to circle back to something that we said earlier, just to make sure that things are very clear. Like, what's the difference between the morning after pill and a chemical abortion? Like, how are those two similar and different?
So the morning, that's a great question. I think that is confusing. So the morning after pill or postcoital contraception, quote unquote, let's say a couple has sex, unprotected sex, or the condom breaks. Oh no, I don't want to get pregnant. Or so right away they go and take the morning after pill. Versus chemical abortion, where the woman misses her period, finds out she's pregnant, and then takes these pills to end the pregnancy. Does that make sense?
So how it works on the morning after pill, does it just prevent the implantation?
Well, yeah, and we talked about this a little bit. It can, depending on where in your cycle you are
Right.
and when you take the pill relative to having sex and many factors, it can prevent implantation. It can prevent ovulation, but it's all variable. So
Okay. Whereas the chemical abortion is actively having the body expel the baby
After implantation.
after implantation.
kills the baby. Yeah, I mean that you could. a woman doesn't know she knows she's pregnant when she has missed a period, and that's a couple weeks after conception.
So if someone is pregnant, doesn't realize they're pregnant, and then has sex, doesn't want to get pregnant, and takes the morning after pill, will that act as an abortion pill too, or will that not harm the baby?
Well, that is a great question. Again, there's two different kind of morning after pills. So one is just progesterone. One is ulipristal, which is like mifepristone. So I would be more concerned. I don't really know the data on that because that's interesting. But the ulipristal is more likely to cause an abortion than the progesterone. I don't prescribe either of those because of how they can work. But
there's a question in the chat. Elaine is asking, she says, so progesterone in low steady doses in the mini pill prevents implantation, but in this case, looking at the reversal of the abortion pill, in this case and dosage, it can reverse the morning after pill. So in one hand, it sounds like I think what she's saying is that on one hand, it sounds like low steady doses will prevent implantation, but in high doses, it reverses the morning after pill. Can you help us understand that?
There's nothing we're not talking about reversing the morning after pill.
Or the chemical abortion, sorry.
Yeah.
Chemical abortion, the first medicine in chemical abortion, mifepristone, RU486, it is an anti-progesterone. It overcomes all the progesterone receptors and then it destroys the pregnancy because the pregnancy doesn't have progesterone. So this woman's already pregnant. She's already, usually when women are taking these pills, they're 6-8 weeks pregnant. And so a high dose progesterone can, not always, if she doesn't take the second pill, overcome the effects of that first medicine. It's a pharmacological difference in it's different pills and different mechanisms. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think I understand, because the chemical abortion is anti-progesterone, and it withdraws, maybe that's a way to think about it, like the progesterone that's needed for the baby to survive. Giving the high dose of progesterone to a woman who has taken the chemical abortion can help to counteract that. But that's in a woman who's pregnant. In a woman who is not pregnant and is wanting not to become pregnant, when she takes the low and steady doses of the progesterone pill, it will create mucus in her uterine lining, or it creates an environment that isn't necessarily helpful for her to remain pregnant or for her to get pregnant.
It's a pretty good explanation. I would clarify it's not mucus in the endometrium. It just thins the lining of the uterus, so there's nothing, the baby can't implant.
Okay.
So these, we're going to have to do another podcast. These are so complex issues that we're going over on such a brief overview. I feel bad for not explaining them better because there is so much more detail. But yeah, I think what you explained about, yes, it overcomes the progesterone.
Yeah. So on one hand, it overcomes the progesterone. On the other hand, it is not allowing the implantation to occur. So
by thinning the uterus.
Yeah, by thinning it out. So kind of same word, but it acts one way in somebody who is pregnant, acts another way in someone who is not pregnant.
Well, you have to be careful how you define pregnancy. So
that's true.
If someone's very early in pregnancy, couple days, and that that little person hasn't implanted in the uterus yet, then some of these methods can prevent that implantation and destroy that life. You talk about chemical abortion, that baby's already implanted and growing. Might be very small, but it's growing. And then you give it this medicine to kill it. So, progesterone will work in that way. That baby needs progesterone. So it's mifepristone is prevents the progesterone getting to the baby. And then if you overcome it with lots of progesterone. So that's the difference, is somebody might be a couple days pregnant versus 6 weeks pregnant. The baby's already implanted at 6 weeks.
That makes sense. And we're getting feedback in the comments that says it makes sense.
People got it. They're very appreciative, Dr. Chris.
Yes.
Don't
She is doing great. We
Yeah.
just need to rewind and listen again.
yeah.
Thanks all. I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, well,
Susanna said, well, so well said, Mo. I'm going to be board certified next week, people.
I think you already are.
Yeah, I'm just saying, hey, if people can identify as puppies and opposite sexes, I can identify as a board certified something. Something.
I like that. I identify as a board certified brain surgeon.
I identify as just, I don't know. I'm going to leave that there before I take us way down a road we don't need to go on.
Well, thank you, Dr. Chris, for
Yes,
doing
thank
this.
you.
Thanks for taking us back to anatomy class, getting the lowdown on how all this works.
This was the biology 101.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like this was the birds and the bees class.
It was great being with you guys and great talking. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a friend of the ministry and just a resource that we can call on these issues. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. God bless you both.
God
God
bless you.
bless. Bye.
All right, friends, we will continue this pro-life conversation. In a few weeks, we're going to be having our friend Katie Faust on. Just give us an update on what's been happening in the news. Boy, Katie Faust has been pounding Twitter
She has.
on in vitro fertilization. Lots of developments happening on that issue. The Republicans are trying to make it part of their platform. So we will be talking about all of that. Surrogacy, going to be talking more about that issue because there's increasing numbers of stories of people commodifying babies, we're going to say, and for less than ethical reasons, because there are no background checks on who gets to commodify a baby. It is a mess. The issue of surrogacy, Katie was on a couple years ago, kind of gave us an introduction, but we want to get caught up on recent developments and how those issues of IVF and surrogacy are continuing to evolve and many of the ethical issues that are being raised. So you will not want to miss that. All right. So next week, we're going to have a show that you are spearheading with one of our new academic advisory council members, Dr. David King.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about mental health. I'm just looking at the wrong camera, but I am looking forward to that conversation. Very, very much so.
So talking about Dr. King teaches at Indiana Wesleyan University, and he's just come on as a member of our academic advisory council, and he suggested a topic for the show on Christians and mental health and the Christian worldview. And so we're going to talk about all of those things next week. And then Katie will, I think, be with us toward the end of June. I'm trying to think of, the June 8th show is going to be 20, we're going to come up with 20 ideas for justice ministries.
20?
Yeah.
The Bible don't even have that many.
We're gonna come up with 20. We're gonna see what happens.
Okay, well there it is, people. Feature says, I'm a board certified normal person. Amen. And shout out to the normal folk, okay? Shout out to the normal folk. Yes, yes, yes. All right, you guys. And with that, it is time for us to go. My oven is still on, and I'm not trying to burn down my house tonight. So we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.